It's my honor and my privilege to welcome to our stage Brother Dave Roever. Would you guys give it up for him tonight?
Thank you, General. God bless you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. You're just doing that because you mean it. Oh, thank you for letting me have a little fun with that. Hey, great music tonight. I think your drummer's great. I don't know why you got that bulletproof glass around him up here. But I enjoyed that last song. I'm like you, Pastor. That last song it just rings the bell inside my heart. It's great to be with all you pastors that are here visiting, and I don't know who you are particularly because I'm new to the community. So all those that are visiting here, thanks for coming tonight. It's going to be a wonderful continuation of what's already started. A great spirit, and it's been a day of a little bit of rain. That was refreshing. I don't know down here if y'all need rain. In Texas, we always thank God for rain. We run out and just to watch it fall. We call a 6-inch rain the distance between the drops. You know it's pretty dry when your catfish have ticks. And your trees fight over dogs. That's really bad there. I shouldn't do that. Kathy, come on up, girl. I want her to get ready to sing for you. I would like for you to let this lady's song do something for you that I would like to do if I could sing. She's going to sing a song that I asked for tonight because I don't get to do Sunday nights very often. I'm usually in transit. But because I'm at the base tomorrow at Fort Polk, we're held over. And it's a perfect night to have this evening together. And I thought, what do I want to do? So I announced this morning that I would finish the rest of the story like Paul Harvey. And so we're going to do that tonight. But I asked her to do a particular song. I have a little motto. It's kind of funny, but it's still true. Never let a good scar go to waste. Whenever you have something in life that affects you deeply, it hurts you, it wounds you, it leaves an emotional or even physical scar, find a way to turn that thing around. Day after tomorrow, I'm meeting with a lieutenant in the United States Army, female, who was, she was set on fire by her coworker. He threw gasoline on her and struck a match and threw it on her. And she lit up like a torch, horribly burned. The perpetrator was, this last week, was convicted and found guilty. Thank God. I hope they lock him up for the rest of his life. That doesn't sound very compassionate. I'm going to tell you it's very compassionate. I don't want him to ever do that to anybody else. So I have compassion on future people that could have been hurt by him. But I meet with her on Tuesday, and provided things go well. She's in an incredibly difficult emotional state right now, and having just come through the trial, and everything has been relived, and I don't expect it to be easy. But I have a message for her, and it's the same message I have for you. And that is that when things happen in your life, and don't let the children be a distraction. They're babies. You were a baby once too. And so it goes with the territory. Eddie, don't worry, Bubba. That's my motorcycle riding buddy there. But when things in your life hurt, take that experience and do something with it to help others who got hurt just like you. And then the question from those people is, how did you make it? Because obviously you're happy in spite of what happened. And it's your open door to have the opportunity to share how Christ makes a difference in our lives. So what I'm going to say is the title of the song, and I want you to welcome Kathy as she sings, Don't Hide the Scars.
I heard a story the other day about counterfeit agents, who are the people who know how to, tell the difference between real money and fake money. And counterfeit agents, when they're training to know the difference, they actually train with real money. They hold it, they put it in their hand, they wrinkle it up, they feel it, they smell it, they, all the things they can do to this money to get a total feel for what this money, real money, what it feels like. We touch it every day. Well, now we touch debit cards, I guess, but we have cash. When we do have cash, we touch real money all the time. But these counterfeit agents will take real money and they train with it and they touch it and they spend all this time feeling what that feels like so that the second they touch counterfeit, they know it's not real. And I got to thinking about that in terms of my walk with Christ, that if I will fill my life with Jesus Christ and Him alone, and I will fill my life with His Word and His Word alone, then I know when I hear something that doesn't line up. The minute I hear it, I will say, no, that doesn't line up with my Bible. That doesn't line up with Jesus and what He would say. And here's what I want to tell you tonight. When you fill your life with those things, when you fill your life with Christ, and you have a deep personal relationship with Him, then all of those things that happen to you in your life, you are able to take those things, share them with others, but you're not just sharing your story, you're sharing the power of a Christ that you know all about. You know all about Him, and you take the real, authentic Jesus Christ, not what someone else said He is, but what you know Him to be, and you share it with other people through your life experience. That's how this works. That's how we take the things that have happened to us and we use them in the life of others to transform them. So I encourage you tonight, whatever it is that you have walked down, any path in your life. I used to be condemned because I grew up in one of those homes that my parents are actually here tonight. They're pastors, and I grew up serving the Lord all of my life, and I really, truly never went down a rebellious path. And Dave, I don't want to take too much time, but I feel like I should say this to somebody. For so long in my life, I felt like because I didn't have a story of tragedy to triumph, that I didn't have something to say. And I know the cliche about, well, your story is all about what God kept you from. And you know what? Amen. I agree with that, and amen, amen, amen. But you know what? Sometimes that just doesn't feel like it's enough. You want the story. You want I've got this huge tragedy to tell you how God brought me through it. And those stories are incredible. And if you have that story, please let the Lord use that in your life and your coworkers to lead them to Christ. But if you're sitting in this audience today and you say, I don't have that kind of story, I just want to tell you that everyone in this room has been lied to, has been hurt, has been confused, has been disillusioned. Everyone in this room has faced something in your life that disappointed you. And that becomes the thing that encourages the person beside you. So don't ever feel like your story is too small. Give whatever your life is, whatever your story is, give that thing to Jesus and watch what He will do with it if you're available and open and willing to be used tonight. I wept all alone and suffered on my own. I didn't think anyone would understand until you opened up and shared your painful past with me. Then the wounds that I kept hid were touched by heaven's hand. Because God used you and all that you've been through, don't hide the scars. Don't be afraid to let them show. 'Cause someone who hurts will see themselves in you, and there is healing in knowing you're not the only one. You can touch another heart. Don't hide the scars. Everyone must go through dark nights of the soul and bear the pain and all the wounds that life can bring. But it's in our our weakest times. We need each other's strength. And with God's love flowing through us, we find the faith we need. So no matter where we've stood, it all works out for good. Don't hide the scars. Don't be afraid to let them show. 'Cause someone who hurts will see themselves in you. And there is healing in knowing you're not the only one. You can touch another heart. Don't hide the scars. Don't be afraid to let them show. Someone who hurts will see themselves in you. And there is healing in knowing you're not the only one. You can touch another heart. You can touch another heart. Don't hide the scars. Don't hide the scars.
I think you'll agree that song wraps it up pretty well in words, doesn't it? It's a beautiful song, great words. And I wanted that sung tonight. Her albums are available for the local church here. Thank you for letting me repeat from this morning. But her albums are available in the back of the auditorium. And she has 3 albums, and that song is included in one of them. Our latest and just recently produced, this is our 3rd Sunday to offer this outstanding video. I have to tell you, it was shot at Gateway Church in Dallas. 33,000 people attend that church. And I'm going to tell you, if that doesn't inspire you to talk, nothing will. And this video is probably one of the best productions we've ever gotten. I think you'll find it, like tonight's story, in a presentation you'll enjoy sharing with your friends. Also available is a series of war stories. It's actually called Warrior Stories. And these are some of the trainees, the people that the Army has sent me, some Marines and all the branches. Their stories are phenomenal. And every one of them, and a few of my own that I did not share. I got to tell you something funny real quick. Today's young warriors that go through our program, the Warrior Transition Units, Warrior Transition Battalions, are sent to me from all over the country. DOD sends them to me. They come with no legs, and we put them back on their feet. Let's just say that. I think that's a funny way to say it, but we get them back up and running in Operation Warrior Reconnect. Well, they'll come, and they'll tell a story that I would never have told about my own experience. I would have held it too close to my vest, is the term. Not these guys. They just unload and tell everything. And you know what? It made me a little ashamed that I'd held things so close. And I opened up on some stories that my wife only knew. You know what I found out? There are a lot of people, just like that song, who found themselves in the stories of these warriors. It'll bless you. There's 6 DVDs and 17 episodes. Award-winning. We won the Telly Award international competition, and I think when you look at it, you'll see why. I didn't mean to talk about it so much. Autobiography, Scarred. It is updated with our tours throughout Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, UAE, Afghanistan, Iraq, Bosnia, Kosovo, South Korea, and many other places. You'll read about these experiences that I've had from the time of my injury in Vietnam to more current times. And by the way, that book's endorsed by Ronald Reagan and Billy Graham, so it tells you it goes back a little ways. Yeah. Billy Graham's still around, but his reward's close. His wife, on her tomb, I've been told, on her headstone, it says, "Construction completed." Isn't that just like Ruth Graham? I tell you, she's a magnificent woman. Another book called War and Recovery. It's like the series on video, but different stories. And this book every story has a corresponding verse that will show you, and listen to my words, it will show you that you don't have to go to war to get hurt. I go to Vietnam, I get hurt, I get a purple heart. You go to divorce court, get hurt, and you get a broken heart. And a broken washer, and the ex got the dryer, and it worked. Because life is not fair, right? Life's not fair. The day you think it's going to be fair, life just got the best of you. So this book will help you in many, many ways. Also, our warrior shirt, this shirt helps us with scholarships. It costs $2,000 to put one warrior through our program. And it's not a one-week event. It's many returning weeks for years. And we train these guys in public speaking with the ultimate goal of turning them into pastors, evangelists, and missionaries and teachers. Operation Warrior Reconnect, thank you for your purchase of these shirts this morning. I see some of you wearing them tonight. You're modeling. You look good. If you take 2 items or more, we have I'm not even going to bother to pick it up. I'd bend over, pick it up, and I just keep falling. But we have a beautiful 14-karat nylon bracelet that we will give to you along with a card. It's called a survivor bracelet. Mine was given to me, a little history on it. Mine was given to me, now look at there. There's a good man right down there. Thanks, champ. Anybody that skinny can bend over, pick up anything. Thank you, buddy. I love you, champ. Good work. Inside is a little card, and I was going to tell you, my medic in Iraq gave me mine, and he put it on me, and he said, remember me. And the way he said it, I said, oh, stop it. I said, you're trying to sound like Jesus. Do this in remembrance of me. He knew he was going to die, but you don't know you're going to die. I said, I'm going to wear it till you come home. And I did. He came home with all his fingers and toes and of sound mind. And Captain Jamie Rath, who was my medic in Iraq, is just fine, thank you, because God answers prayer. Wear yours and remember to pray for our troops. But there's a card that will come with it. I'm going to ask you to fill that card out and say, thank you and God bless you in your own words. And when you do, if you leave that card with me, I will hand deliver it to a warrior, either downrange when I go, and I go often, or I'll give it to one of our injured in the hospital or in our program. We promise you, your words will be encouraging to somebody. So take the time to do that before you leave. You can buy one of these if you want to at any time and use it as a Bible marker. That's what most people do. That's bad because I want you to respond. If you don't do it tonight, you'll take it home and you never will get it done. Now, I want it down there this time. You don't have to come back up. I have a scripture I'd like to read to you, if you don't mind, to start this evening off with what I want to say to you. And thanks for letting me use my electronic Bible. This is this iPhone 4. That's how current I am. I had to blow the dust off of it. It's so old. Philippians 1, verse 12. Just one verse. Listen to it. I want you to understand, brethren. So that tells you that this letter Paul is writing was not written to the world. It was written to the church. I want you to understand, my brothers and sisters, he's saying, the things which happened to me have fallen out rather to the furtherance of the gospel. Things happen. Forrest Gump knew that. The world has bumper stickers that say something to that effect. Things happen. And when they do, we often say, why me, God? I don't recommend you do that. He might answer you. I don't know, Boudreaux, something about you I don't like. Poof. Now you're a flaming idiot. You know, I feel like, I honestly feel like that if I had ever said, why me, God, it would have been the end of our relationship, because I would have been accusing him falsely of something he did not do. I'm going to say it, and you read what's left of my lips. Jesus didn't do this to me. He didn't shoot me. He didn't set me on fire. In fact, I have no animosity toward the Almighty whatsoever, even though I didn't understand why he didn't stop it from happening. Now, that raises something very serious. I guarantee you, if you have tried in the time of suffering, you have tried to figure out why it happened. You've asked these questions. Did God do it to me? You know he didn't. When is important because the timing may have something to do with what is evolving in your life. And even though God doesn't do evil to us, he will let those things that are evil that happen to our lives be used, like in that song. Don't hide a scar. Let it be used of God. Even if it was a scar from a negative experience while you were living in sin, it doesn't matter. Any experience that we have had that will point the way toward the cross, God will use that for his glory. Think about it. Now, some of your heads are spinning right now because you're wondering what I'm about to tell you on this. Why did God let it happen? And that was the question. If he could put the moon in space, couldn't he stop a 7.62 bullet? Couldn't he? Everybody in this room agree? He could have stopped that little bullet that would penetrate a hand grenade and blow beside my head. But why didn't he? And like a good lawyer, when I don't know the answer to a question, I don't ask it in court. I'll tell you that. I did not want to blame God, but I didn't understand why he didn't stop it. And for 20 years, what I'm going to tell you is the truth. I've got a friend in here, David and Francis Allen, two of the sweetest people in my entire life, and they're the parents of the young lady that just sang. David and Francis Allen, pastor over in Natchitoches at Oasis of Love Church, and that's a good name for their church. I want to tell you something about this couple. Whenever I was in my worst physical condition right after the war and was horrible to look at, they put me in their pulpit. They had me speaking in their church in Natchitoches. Been there 43 years, I think it is. Well, I tell you, that's pretty faithful, wouldn't you say? 43 years in one church? Woo! You know everybody and everybody knows you. And to get along, that's hard to do. Well, I grew up in a Christian home. And my dad was very much a pioneer pastor. He would go into an area with no church, and he would start building a church, start in our own home. And then it would evolve into a building, and that building would expand as the church grew. And one church he started from zero in Mission, Texas. Now the congregation is over 6,500 people, I was told in the last count. And so in being involved in the household of faith, and then have something happen that you don't know the answer to why didn't he stop it, I didn't want to deal with it because I didn't want to blame God. And when I didn't know the answer, I wouldn't ask the question. And one night, after about a 3-month tour, 90 days out, I came in on a Sunday afternoon. Our last Sunday service was near our home, and we finished our tour. And I got a phone call that night from Jan Crouch on Trinity Broadcasting. She's now gone on to be with the Lord. And Jan Crouch said to me, I need you on TBN tomorrow night. I said, tomorrow night? I just got in tonight. I can't be there tomorrow night. I'm exhausted. I've been out for 3 months. I'd be a terrible guest. She said, we got to have you. Well, it sounds like I'm really important. If you get the call the night before, the person they really wanted canceled, you're just on a list. So, it's no fat head for me. I figured that out a long time ago. I said, Miss Jan, let's do next year Memorial Day. She said, well, General Robinson Reisner is on, United States Air Force General, and he happened to be my best friend. I'd never known a man like him. The way we met's one of the most unusual circumstances a guy could ever meet. And how we became friends, he was a prisoner of war for 7 years. 4.5 of those in solitary. And he came out of solitary singing the national anthem. What kind of hero is that? Come on, I mean, that's my kind of hero. He was faithful, and he's now gone on to his greater reward because he was a faithful man of God. And I said, for General Reisner, I'll be on. I'd go to the gate of hell for him, I said. Then I added, but I'm not going through for him. I said, I love him, but I don't love him that much. And so I went, and I got there, and I told her, I said, Miss Jan, don't ask me any hard questions tonight. I said, I want to be a good guest, but I'm tired, so don't ask any hard questions. Sounded like Hillary Clinton during the primaries, didn't it? And she said the same thing, she was tired. She said, don't ask any hard questions. I get on the set, and that woman asked me the hardest question of all. Davy, she said, you know why God lets you be scarred, maimed, and burned, don't you? And I'm thinking, no. But this blue-haired wonder is going to explain it all to me now. I was so mad at her, I could have pinched her little head off, but it wasn't the Jerry Springer show. And I thought, you know, we're going to wash off all that makeup and we're going to find Jimmy Hoffa right here on the set. I was just bent out of shape, but I had to. It was Christian TV. You got to fake it for Jesus. So I faked it. And I pretended to be a good gentleman. I said, no, Miss Jan, I don't know why God let me be scarred, maimed, and burned. And then she did this little act. She pulled those glasses. It's really cool because I got a nose now and I can pull my glasses down on it. It's good. I got a nose this year. They made me a nose. I didn't have a nose. I just had part of a nostril. But it's good to have a nose I can stick in other people's business. They made it from the top of my head so I can smell my hair. That's a joke. I can't. I'm kidding. In fact, I can't smell anything or taste anything hardly at all now. But that'll get better, they think. She said, you know why God let you be scarred, maimed, and burned? I said, I don't know why, Miss Jan. And she looked at me over her glasses and she said, Davy, now guys, when a woman does this to you, just go stand in the corner she's about to send you to. She said, he didn't do that to you. But he didn't stop it from happening. Now here it comes, because that was my question. Why didn't he stop it? She said, he didn't stop it from happening because he knew he could trust you with the scars. Thank you for letting that response be there. Thank you, because that is a wow moment in my life. A paradigm shift took place at that moment. That was the last day I ever thought of suicide in my life. That's been 28 years ago. 28 years ago. I'm going to tell you something. God does not do evil. Say it with me. God does not do evil. Remember the scripture? The things which happened unto me, happened unto me. God didn't do that to him. God didn't throw Paul in prison. Paul's in prison for preaching the gospel, but God didn't put him there. Paul could have caved and not gone to prison. It was his choice. But he would rather die a saint than live a sinner. And he did, in fact. He never saw a free day again. They took him ultimately and beheaded him in the public square because of his testimony of Jesus. And so often, I hear the Revelation statement, they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, and they stop right there. That scripture doesn't stop there. It has a third recommendation, actually a third imperative. They love not their lives unto death. Now, I'm going to tell you something. When you serve the United States military, sooner or later, you're going to ask yourself this question. Is there anything worth dying for? You'll ask that question. If you put on that uniform, you're going to ask that question sooner or later. And I can tell you, in this room of patriots, there are men in this room. Let's talk to the guys. There are men in this room that would die for their family. There are women in this room lay down their life for their babies. There are military in this room that lay down their life for their country and never give it a second thought. They go into battle knowing what could happen. And many of our military today, except for the last couple of years, have not served, including the last couple of years, because actually they say the war's ended in Iraq and Afghanistan. They're still going strong, Bubba. And our troops are still involved to the tune of 10,000, 11,000 per country or so. And I'm saying to you, when you love someone enough to die for it, and especially if it is your brother, that's the greatest love there is in the world. There's no greater love. To lay down your life for something you believe in. And I got to tell you, it would be presented to me in a way that I honestly thought I was actually dead on the bank of that river called the Vamco-Tay, a tributary off the Vamco, and it runs all the way into Cambodia at what's called the Parrot's Beak. This is for you military that know what I'm talking about. The Parrot's Beak was the closest place you could be out of country and be that close to the South Vietnamese capital of Saigon. It was the most dangerous border point on the entire border. They came through from the Ho Chi Minh Trail down that way. And that's why I got injured, because of political moves to stop the bombing of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, opened that thing up like a Interstate 80. They came through, and it was more than we could stop them, and they got us. And I'm a consequence of that political move. I want to say to every Vietnam veteran in this room, you did not lose a war in Vietnam, my friend. If it was lost in the halls of Congress, not in the jungle of Vietnam. And thank you for your service. Never ceases to amaze me, the people that are so quick to send our youth to war are the last to be held responsible for what they did wrong. I have no regrets. I'm going to say it again. Listen carefully. I have no regrets about my injury. I'm going to say it. Just get it out of the way. I'm proud of my scars and stripes. Did you get it? I'm proud I served my country. I'm proud to be a Vietnam veteran. I'm proud to be an American. I love my country. I love this country. And I was prepared to die for it that day on the bank of that river. But I'm going to tell you something. What happened to me, God did not do. But he's the master of taking disaster and changing tragedy into triumph. And that day, when she said that to me, my life changed. And my ministry was reborn again. I want to tell you about that experience. I'm going to take you back to when I was 16 years old and fell in love. I asked her to marry me when I was 16 years old. And she slapped me when I was 16 years old. And she said, I'm only 13 years old. I said, I know, but you have the body of a 14-year-old. She slapped me again. That was the end of that conversation. And this boy, possessed with the urge to merge, cooled these jets right then. And I'm going to tell you what's beautiful. We dated for 6 years and we married virgin, both of us. Give us a hand. Go ahead. Let these kids hear it. You can wait too. You can wait. It's okay to wait. You're not weird if you wait. You're safer if you wait. So she graduated from high school. She said, if you love me, you'll wait for me. I said, I'll pick you up at 10. But I knew what she meant. So I waited for her, and she graduated. We got married and went off to Bible college. But I was working at General Dynamics in Fort Worth, and I had a job of jobs. I was making more money than my college president. This defense contract had a huge job of developing to finish it and test it in the battlefield in Vietnam, the F-111. And the F-111 was the first sweep-wing bomber, fighter bomber, actually. And my job was so good. I was making money, but I had to work overtime, holidays, weekends, and I got double time for holidays. I was making money. My grades crashed and burned. They dropped below sea level. Did you get it? You're in Louisiana. Y'all are just barely above sea level. And New Orleans is below sea level. And I got this little notice in the mail to go take my physical from Uncle Sam telling me to go take a physical. I said, thank you, sir. I wrote him and said, thank you for inquiring about my health. No, I took my physical. It was the only exam I passed that whole semester. I was so proud of myself, I got an O+ on the blood test. Did you get it? Right over a few heads here. It's because I'm up high and you're sitting down low. But anyway, they told me I was going to be inducted in the Army, so I joined the Navy so I wouldn't get hurt serving in the military. Oh, well. In the Navy, I was given the opportunity to make a few choices, and I actually chose to be a gunner's mate. And they trained me GMM, gunner's mate missile. So my job was going to be loading missiles on a gigantic, we'll call it cylinder, firing ring, underneath in the belly of the boat, and then learn how to send that missile up and fire it. It was a great training program, and I loved it. And it's the only time in my entire career I was top of my class. Well, I was in the top 10% of the lower 1/3 of my class in school. I found out 5 out of 4 people don't understand math. You're listening a little bit. Some of it's getting by you, but I'm going to work at it. I'm going to bring us together here. But with my graduation certificate of being first in the class were my orders to Coronado, California, to train with the Special Warfare Command of the United States Navy. And they put me on a riverboat called a PBR, patrol boat designated river PBR. Made of fiberglass, 30 feet long, 11.5 feet wide, and it'd do about 40 knots if you're lucky, and if you didn't have a lot of ammo, a lot of fuel, and a lot of people. 4 people on the boat were required. And it took me 8 months to make it to boat captain, and on the day I made boat captain, was promoted to E5. I never got my promotion or to be boat captain because that was the day I was injured. 5 days from R&R. 5 days. Brenda already was packed, had tickets to go to Hawaii. We were going to meet 5 days later, and I never made it. It's called the Halikoa Hotel, and it was a Quonset hut back then. Quonset huts, but it was okay. It was on Waikiki Beach. We were going to have the time of our life. 45 years later, I went to Waikiki and spent the day and the night, actually a week, as a guest at the Halikoa Hotel, which now is the nicest hotel in all of Hawaii, I think. It's right on Waikiki, the largest beachfront of all of them. And because I'm a DOD contractor, the gentleman that runs the place, LeBroom, asked me, he said, would you speak to the staff? I said, sure. I figured 30 people. 350 people were the staff that were not, and he did it at time of change so that a lot of them could be there. And so I got up and told him, I said, boy, you guys are rough. Took me 45 years to get rescheduled back here because I didn't make my last one. But that day, on the bank of a river in Vietnam, all the training I'd gone through at Coronado would come due. At Coronado, I was trained by SEAL Team 1, and they sent me up to, the island was called, it'll come to me in Washington, and I went through my SEER training there. I'm putting a little extra in for the military to understand. They'll love some of these memories, but SEER training was in Washington State on an island just off the coast, and I'll think of it in a minute. I can't believe I can't remember it right now. Whidbey, thank you, Whidbey Island, and it was so cold. I thought, why are they training me in the cold? I'm going to Vietnam. It was cold, and they gave me a coat with no zipper, no buttons. Then they beat me because I didn't zip up the coat and have buttons. That was part of the training, trying to break us, and starved us to death. I ate little berries. I don't know what they were, but I bumped into trees and apologized and saluted after that. It was stuff I should not have eaten. And then I ate a crab and it ate me back. That didn't work. I bit it when it was live. I was hungry. It was all kinds of cool training, but the thing they never trained me in was how to say goodbye to Brenda. And I got to that airport in Dallas, Texas at Love Field, and I suddenly realized I don't have what it takes. It's going to take God to help me now. And my junior high school sweetheart, who's now my little teenage wife, I kissed her goodbye, and so help me to this day, if I lick my lips and think about that moment, I taste the salt of her tears. I kissed her tears off her face. And I turned to walk away, proud of myself that I wasn't crying, because big boys don't cry, until she called my name. She said, Davy. Oh! 5 steps, tears. I spun around, mad at myself. I said, what? She looked at me and she asked this haunting question. Are you coming back? I guarantee every wife that ever kissed her husband bye to go to war, every man that ever kissed his wife bye to go to war, because it's both ways now, they ask that question in some fashion. It's part of the game, Bubba. You can't get away from it. I looked at her and I was so adamant. I'll be back without a scar. Why did I say that? I could have just said, I'll be back. I'll be back. Then I could be governor of California. I said, I'll be back without a scar. And when I said it, something in my mind said, you just made a promise you'll never keep. And in 50 years of marriage, that's the only promise I ever made that I didn't keep to that girl sitting right back there. She stayed with me through hell on earth. And I'm going to tell you about that living hell. I arrived in Vietnam after all that training. They put me on a helicopter and sent me deep into the jungle to a cleared area that they had made a rice paddy near a river. So at the rise of the tide, the water would flow in and they could trap it And then when the tide went back down, the water would stay. And on that, you know what it is? You got them right here in Louisiana, rice fields. And those big, I don't know what to call them, dams, those ridges of mud they bank up to hold the water. It was too narrow for the helicopter to land on. And when the Jeep came out to pick me up, they couldn't land it they didn't want to land near the jungle, too easy a target. So they got out in the middle of the rice paddy, and I had to jump out into the mud and throw out my what I would call, they called it a sea bag or backpack thing. I threw that out and jumped out, and I'd sloshed through the mud and got up in the Jeep. The helicopter took off. They took me in to a village called Sadek. On the way in, my commanding officer, Vince Rambo, that's the truth. That was his name. The Rambo movies hadn't come out, so it didn't mean anything then. But Vince Rambo picked me up, lieutenant, which same as a captain in the Army. Picked me up. Welcome aboard, sailor. I said, yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Dave Roever. I'm a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I've come to hold a revival on this compound. I want to preach the gospel at every troop I can. That was the last word he said to me. Not one word for the rest of the tour in. When I got in, he pushed me out over at the SEAL barracks. He said, get out. That was what boy, I jumped out. I didn't know where to go. He took off. He had nothing to do with me. On the way in, though, I continued. I said, to accomplish my mission, I'm going to need a guitar. I need a 3/4-inch cable about 6 feet long. I need a mic stand, a microphone with a microphone hookup so I can plug it into the amplifier, which I need, and then I'll hold services wherever I can. Not a word. Just get out was the last thing I heard. About a month later, I hear my name coming over the intercom. I go to the captain's office. I open the door. I know something's wrong. You don't get called to the captain's office. You're in trouble. Because it's a captain's mass is what they call it. And I open the door slowly, and I start to step in with fear and trepidation, and I look over. I just threw the door open. I said, hallelujah. There was a guitar, a microphone stand, everything I had asked for sitting there waiting on me. I looked over at Lieutenant Rambo. I said, thank you, sir. He said, get out. I took my stuff and I went over to the library, which he said I could use. It was the only air-conditioned building other than his office, and he was not going to let me preach in there. He said, go to the library. It would hold 8 people, but that was my congregation. And I played my guitar and sang all the songs by Andre Crouch that I had learned for so long, and God gave me one convert, just one kid. Not much to boast of, is it? Well, he gave me 2 converts, me. Because by the grace of God, I was able to keep my witness through the entire 8 months. Among 4 of us, 3 of them nicknamed me Dr. Doolittle, Dudley Do-Right, and Preacher Man. I thought that was a compliment. I called them pervert number 1, pervert number 2, pervert number 3, and they thought that was a compliment. And that's how we got along. Preacher Man and the 3 perverts. That sounds like a gospel rock and roll band, doesn't it? 13 years, I'm going to jump way ahead. 13 years after my injury, all 3 of those boys in the same year, after 13 years of thinking I was dead, they thought I was dead. I thought one of the 3 was dead. 13 years later, all 3 of them gave their heart to Jesus in the same year, not knowing the others had done it. God answered prayer. 13 years of germination. Think of that. So I only had 1 convert there, but I had 13 years later, I had a total of 4 counting the first one. That's not bad for a bunch of guys that hated me and yet would have died for me in a moment, and one of them almost did. And on July the 26th, 1969, yes, teenager, right after the War of 1812. I know what you're thinking. On July the 26th, 1969, I took my second injury. 3 days earlier, on the 23rd, I was awarded a Purple Heart for my first injury. The second injury, I was listed KIA. It went through 8 months. I did not get a single paycheck, in the hospital. And I'm in the hospital alive. And they had me down KIA because it went through the Pentagon that I was killed in action. Well, they got it corrected 34 years later. 34 years later. But in the hospital, 8 months later, they got the pay record corrected. So I got my back paid, enough money, back paid. And I got to tell you a really cool story. Got a minute? I got to tell you a really cool story. Because I didn't sleep with the girls in Vietnam, I kept my money. I didn't drink, so I kept my money. I didn't smoke, so I kept my money. And it was called MPC, Military Payment Certificates, and it came in red form. You couldn't spend it in the open market. Some of you Vietnam veterans remember that. Because if you spent greenback dollars, you could be arrested and jailed. Because that money would be spent against us to buy arms and ammunition for the communists. So we got paid in red money. I had a boot rolled up. Inside my boot was rolled up thousands of dollars from the day I got there. Every dollar I was paid was put in that boot. And dirty underwear on top of the money. Nobody touched my money. When I was injured, the deal was all of us had the same deal. If you have anything the other guys want, they can get it. It's everything in my locker was to be taken. But I never thought I was going to get hurt, even though the Lord prepared me in several ways, and there's not enough time to tell you. But on 2 occasions specifically showed me I was going to be injured. And I tried to look beyond it, but I knew it was coming, but you don't know it. You know what I'm saying? You know it, but you don't. You think it, but you don't think it. It can happen, but it won't happen. Well, the only thing left in my locker was my boots, stuffed full of money and dirty underwear on top. And Lieutenant Rambo, who was my best friend over there, he took me and one sniper. I was a machine gunner. I carried an M60, and the three of us would get in a little, it's called a Boston Whaler, with 240 horsepower motors, and we would creep in at night into Cambodia. And we'd catch the Viet Cong over there swimming naked in the river. And we'd get up there and burn all their clothes, and we burned all their shoes, and we blew up all their guns, and they scattered everywhere naked. I don't know. I can't sleep now tonight thinking about it. What do you do naked in a jungle? They even have a TV show like that now. They were naked and afraid. So, on July 26, 1969, a sniper put me in his crosshairs. I was trying to throw a white phosphorus hand grenade, and I pulled back, and the bullet, I think, was aimed for my head, but he missed and hit my hand. And the grenade blew right beside my face. I've been told it burns at 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, twice the heat necessary to melt the engine out of your car. You can put that on the engine of your equipment if you don't want the enemy to get it and you can't retrieve it. We had to do that on our boats, because if the enemy got those engines, they could keep those boats or use those boats against us. So weaponry, anything that you did not want them to get, could be destroyed with phosphorus. Think what it does to your body. And it exploded right here. Boom, right here, not an inch difference. Right here. My left hand was elevated, and it caught what went by my face, hit my thumb, took my thumb off. Even that, they made that out of my hip. I don't suck it, I will tell you that right now. Don't suck your hip. You might hurt your neck. That's funny right there. I don't care who you are. And it took the tips of my fingers, the fire burned my fingerprints off, and this hand severed right in half with only one finger left attached that wasn't hanging by tendons. And that's my preaching finger. These don't work, but they make a good mic stand and a preaching finger and the anointing of the Holy Spirit, and they call you an evangelist. And I'm proud of that preaching finger. It's the only one that didn't get blown off. These were all hanging by tendons, and I was pumping blood out of an open artery, and my body from my waist up was on fire. I couldn't see my back. It was on fire. Everything was burning. And I can't tell you how it felt, because I have no memory of the pain. Zero memory of any pain at that moment. I don't remember any pain. But when I looked down, I saw my heart beating. And I looked closer, and my face was on my boots. And I knew then I'd never kiss that girl's lips again. I knew then I would never come home to the country that I loved so much. I would die for people I didn't know them. I knew their language enough. I had to learn Vietnamese. That was very difficult because my first language was Spanish. I didn't learn English till I was 6 years old, and I had to learn English to go to school. My mother, when I was born, almost died, and she never recovered and did die. And I was being raised as a little infant by Maria Rubio. She was my Mexican nanny. And at 6 years old, they told me I was not a Mexican. That blew my little Hispanic mind. I'm not Mexican. I cried for 2 weeks. They said that I did not stop crying for 2 weeks. And I went to school, learned English. Then I go to Vietnam and learn Vietnamese. Well, I had to learn Vietnamese before I went in language school. And I get to Vietnam, and I start getting my personal pronouns mixed up from Spanish to English to Vietnamese. And all kinds of words came. They said, "Oh, you're Pentecostal." And I speak with many tongues. I don't think there's any angels in there, but it was really amazing. And when that grenade blew, it blew my face off, blew my hair off, blew my ear off. I got my hair back. I bought it. I did. There's a guy in China that's bald. I got his hair. It's made in China, so someone doesn't have their hair. I'm proud of it, though. It was blown off in Vietnam, but it's also blown off in South Carolina in a high wind. I was at the Citadel speaking, and I was with as a 4-star Air Force general that year. With the superintendent at the Citadel was Air Force that year. And I was walking along with him, and the wind caught my hair. I'm chasing it, and a dog beat me to it. It's very embarrassing. My ear was blown off. I got to tell you a quick story. I was on one of my trips into Iraq, and I was on a mission with some SEALs. Now, you got to understand, I was not a SEAL. I was a brown water black beret. The difference is this. The SEALs couldn't get where they wanted to go without us, and we didn't have a mission without them. So they called us symbiotic partners in war. So today, the SEAL teams and the boat teams do everything together. And you can see that in a movie called Acts of Valor. If you ever saw that movie, the boat guys that came in and rescued the SEALs, that's what we did. I can't tell you how many times we pulled the SEALs out under fire and kept them alive. Because when they're coming away, their back is to the enemy and they're most vulnerable. And that's when we got ourselves shot up so bad, trying to get them on board and out of there. Well, on July 26th, that grenade stopped everything in motion. Right then, everything came to a screeching halt. I jumped overboard in the water, and I burned in the water. Because phosphorus, you can't extinguish. It has to burn itself out. I crawled up on the bank of the river, and I'm still burning, and I'm on my knees, and I look at the damage, and I just fall over backwards. It was so overwhelming. Still no pain. Not to my recollection, no pain. And the reason I say that is because I remember when the pain came on, and that was when the shock wore off. The pain came in waves that I cannot describe, and I don't want to. I let that sleeping dog lay there, right? Don't kick it. When I fell over backwards, they thought I died, and that's when all the confusion started. My team took it all the way to the Pentagon that I was killed in action, but the guy and the medic in the helicopter thought I was dead until in the helicopter, which on the way to the helicopter, they had me on a stretcher, face down, arms hanging off. I remember all this. I was never unconscious. I was never unconscious. I remember everything. And I was still burning. And the stretcher caught fire. Rip, and I fell right through on my head. Have you ever had one of those days? Nothing goes right. I mean, even Murphy's Law does not apply there. They got me in the helicopter, rolled up in wet blankets. And under the blankets, I'm starting to feel the pain. And I just yelled, "Medic!" And I thought that didn't come out very good because all my air was coming through a hole in my chest that phosphorus burned all the way through underneath or beneath my vocal cords. And when I said medic, my tongue was so swollen, I barely got the word out because my mouth was on fire inside and went down into my bronchial tubes. And when I said medic, it squeaked out. And it was so amazing to the medic who thought I was dead, he almost jumped out of the helicopter. And the pilot lost control, and we're dropping like a rock. This is the way it all came out. This is the way I remember it. I thought, good Lord, we're going to crash, and I'm going to be the only survivor. And so they stopped on the way to Saigon, to the hospital in Saigon. It was a big Tan Son Nhut air base. But on the way, they stopped at a little MASH unit. And it's very much the same thing you saw on MASH. It was just like that. And they rolled me in because I was still burning. And they decided they wanted to whether or not they would do any kind of surgery on me at that moment. And I'm laying there, and I hear two doctors. One is saying, he's too far gone. We got some that can live. And the other doctor said, yeah, but let's go ahead and put the fire out. And I'm thinking, yes. Let's put the fire out. That's a good idea. Do that. Did you know 2 weeks later, they opened me up to do surgery, and I burst into flames on the table? Because phosphorus only needs oxygen to spontaneously combust. You don't have to strike a match. Air hits white phosphorus, it explodes. And it was blown in so deep, so quickly, it didn't have time to burn, and it was inside of me, deteriorating slowly. I don't know if I should tell you this, but I guess I will. I don't know. I'm going to tell you. I had a guy ask me once, he says, is that stuff still in you? And I didn't know. So I stood naked in the dark in front of a mirror, and I didn't see anything glowing. I said, okay, we're safe. Now, you're not going to sleep tonight with that image. I just ruined your week, didn't I? Whoa. So you can see why I debated that one, to tell you or not. But they got me to Saigon and put me on a C-141 Air Force hospital jet and flew me to Japan. And it was there that I would face the most difficult day of my life. I shared it with the congregation this morning, but I want to share it with all of you here that are visiting tonight that weren't here this morning. Because this was the turning point. You'd say, wait, no. The difficult day, the worst day, the bad day of your life was on that riverbank. Nothing to compare what I'm about to tell you. Because the pain was internalized when I realized, looking in the mirror, that I would lose that little teenage sweetheart I fell in love with. Because I knew there was no way she could love a freak and a monster. And when I looked in the mirror that I requested in Japan, they walked away with all my hope. I had nothing left. That was the only time in my entire life I've been without hope. And whenever you get there, suicide's your last stop. And when they walked away, I didn't have a gun or a knife, but I was not going to bring home to the girl that I kissed goodbye in that airport. I wasn't going to bring home something as horrible as I saw in that mirror. And I pulled the tube out, and I laid my head back, and I waited to die. And I got hungry. It was the wrong tube. I pulled lunch, and you can die that way, but if you smell etouffee, you're plugging it in, not taking it out. I got chewed out. You wouldn't believe how they reamed on me for pulling that tube out. And they said, if you can pull that tube out and live, we're sending you home. So they canceled the trip for my wife to come to Japan to be with me when I died. And they sent me home to Brooke Army Medical Center, where I go after I speak tomorrow out at Fort Polk. I'm a patient again at Brooke. And they've rebuilt my face. As I said, I've got a nose, and I'm so proud of it. It's a boy. And I have eyelids and my mouth. I have lips again. And those of you that know me, especially David and Francis Allen, and, of course, their daughter and son-in-law, Dave and Kathy, who are our associates. By the way, that girl been singing for me for 28 years. What do you think of that? That's pretty good, isn't it? That's faithfulness. They all know, they've seen that my nose was pushed all the way over because it didn't have the other nostril. And then I couldn't breathe anymore through my nose. And all my contractions, all the places I was burned where it can shrink, for the last couple of years, it just started shrinking up. And I got to where I couldn't open my hand as far, and I play piano, and I found myself struggling to reach the few keys I can reach. And I knew something was wrong. Why am I contracting? I'm contracting. I actually even got smaller and shorter. Everything about me seemed to just be pulling in. And I lost 150 pounds. And something's wrong. I go to the doctor. He says, well, for one thing, you can't breathe through your nose. He said, we got to fix your nose. You're about to lose your eyeball. It's drying out. It's scarred. It's burned. We can fix that, but we got to make you eyelids. And we can stop you from drooling. And I thought that was good. The only time I drool now is Brenda. I got out of that one, didn't I? Where are you, baby? I want you to stand. I want you to welcome my wife tonight. Baby, where are you? There she is. That's my girl. And she never wants to be seen. She doesn't want to be talked about. She doesn't want to go on the platform and do anything because she's so quiet. And I have to make up the difference. So I talk and talk and talk. And Dave and Kathy are wearing earplugs now, and so they don't have to hear me. But I got to tell you something. They rebuilt my face, and it was one of the most challenging moments of my life. And I'm going to show you a picture that I promised the church this morning I'd show tonight. And when I call for it, I don't want it up for more than 10 seconds, okay? Do a countdown, 10 seconds, and take it off. It's something so grotesque, but it wasn't 48 years ago. It was a dark, dark time in my life this year. It was a few months ago at Brooke Army Medical Center when they said, we're going to rebuild your face. And after 12 hours of surgery, 3 teams of doctors working feverishly, when I rolled out of surgery, I came to and I thought I was being eaten by a lion. My face was just on fire. It felt like I was burned all over again, and it tripped me back. For the first time, I had flashbacks. I never had them before. I didn't know what they were. Now I understand. For the first time, I had anxiety attacks. I didn't know what that was. And it scared me so bad. I thought I was losing my mind, and I'm being eaten by a lion. And I was panicking. And I'm an adult. I'm not a kid. Why can't I see through this? My mind was it was just ravaged by that anesthesia that they kept me under. When you're under 12 hours, it takes 12 days to get that out of your system. And then it takes even longer. I think I still have some of it. And in the middle of my panic, my sweet wife just reached over. She knows. I don't know how in the world. There's no explanation. But even after I was burned and all my grafts were on, and I was 1 year and 2 months in the hospital, I remember at my worst pain, if she just touched me, the pain would go away, and I could go to sleep. She'd be up all night just touching me, nodding off, sitting up, touching my scar tissues. Well, when I came out of this surgery, in a panic, she reached over and touched me. And all of a sudden, everything recentered, and I'm okay. And I heard the doctors, as I'm waking up, Dave, it was a great surgery. It was totally successful. It was wonderful. And when they stood me up, I looked in a mirror. It was the most horrible thing I've seen since the day of my injury. So I'm going to make a point to you. Don't think for one moment that because a man is a minister of the gospel, that he has some free get-out-of-pain card. This man's sitting here and these pastors, you think, oh, they're men of God. They don't know what it's like to suffer like we do. Let me tell you something. At any given moment, these people may hurt 10 times worse than you think because they carry on their shoulder the responsibility of an entire congregation. And some of the things they go through and the night calls and the wee hours of the morning, and it's usually from people that don't go to church calling up wondering why you aren't at the hospital. Well, I didn't even know you came to our church. But I'll be there. Let me get dressed. And off they go to the wild blue yonder. Let me tell you something. When I looked in that mirror, I saw nothing good. And I thought those doctors were the biggest liars on the face of the earth. And this is what I saw. You can show it. Now, I want you to hear me when I tell you this. I'm okay with scars. I'm okay with mutilation. That's happened. I've lived with it for a lifetime. But I thought I would never stand in front of an audience again and ever share the gospel of Jesus Christ looking like that. It was over. Ministerial murder had been committed. I walked into my motor home after Brenda got me home, and on the way home, I was in such a panic attack I couldn't control my bowels. My life was so totally destroyed, and the pain, and it was all coming back, and it's still a residue of things happening in my mind I'm not sure of. Last night, this morning, at 2 o'clock, I woke up, and I was reliving all of the firefights I went through, and when Brenda woke up, I said, "Baby, I'm so glad you woke up. I don't know what's wrong. It's your carpet. Makes my eyes water. I'm allergic to it." I said, "Why? What has been awakened in me? What woke up that I can't push it back? I kicked that dog is what happened." And I'm here tonight to tell you something. Those doctors looked at me and they saw success because they knew where I was going. I saw failure because I saw where I was. And when I came to Jesus, He saw where I was going and He thought I was beautiful. When I came to Jesus, I saw where I was and it was ugly. Aren't you glad the great physician knows the end from the beginning? Aren't you glad He understands? And so this morning, I came to church and I said to Kathy, as I got up to speak, pray for me that I have a good attitude. Pray for me that I can get through this. And we had a great morning. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, and Humpty Dumpty had a big fall. And all the king's horses and all the king's men tried, but they couldn't put Humpty together again. And then along came the king. And as I said this morning, Humpty's back. Because the king is alive. Jesus lives. He's real. And so, I was at Brook for a year and 2 months. They let people come in to visit us in the ICU, and I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what an ICU was. I'd never been in an ICU in my life. And then after many months, they let me walk, and they put this little robe on me, and it didn't come together in the back. It's the ICU. See, I didn't go to medical school, and I figured that one out. The military's famous for all of its acronyms. Now I know what the ICU is. Well, I don't want to waste your time by just carrying on. I need to bring this to a close here pretty quick. I want to tell you, when they let visitors come in, that was a tough day. There were 13 of us in that room. To my knowledge, I could be wrong, but I don't know that I am. I think I'm the only one that lived. I don't know of any survivors out of that room. I think I'm the only one that made it. They were pushed out one at a time, feet first with a tag on their toe. And I knew where they were going. They actually had beds, I was told, that they could put the deceased in that you couldn't see. It looked like an empty bed. Because they didn't want us dying out on the main ward where it would discourage guys that had a chance. So they put all of us in what we nicknamed death row so we could all discourage each other to death. I guess I wasn't discourageable. Because God had a plan for my life. And I'm sitting on this stool tonight because my back is pretty weak after a bad jump in Iraq, which I broke 6 vertebrae, and now I have 12 screws and 2 rods to go with all the other metal. You can't imagine what I do in the airport. I set off everything. I do. I get wanded. They want to take me in a private room, and I say, "You're not taking me in there. You guys just keep your hands to yourself. Search me. I'm a vet." Why do they search vets? They ought to know better than that. Every veteran ought to have a free pass to any airplane he wants to walk on. He fought for this country. She fought for this freedom. If you can't trust a vet, who can you trust? Good grief. So anyway, now that's my soapbox. I left that hospital, suitcase in one hand, sweetheart in the other, and did great. But I got to tell you, that first day, when they let visitors in, it wasn't great. A woman walked over to her husband in the bed next to mine. He was 100% third degree. No skin left No one ever survived it. They all die. You cannot survive 100% third degree. He had no skin. She walks up, takes off her wedding ring, and throws it on the bed. She turned around, walked out, and said, "You're embarrassing. I couldn't walk down the street with you." I went into panic mode. I thought, which tube do I pull? I can end this right now, because in round robin, I'm the next guy to have a visitor. And the door opened, and there Brenda stood. Angels bated their breath. They hushed each other's wings, and they looked over the banister of heaven. And they listened to what she would say. She's standing at the head of the bed and doesn't believe it's me until my wrist is turned. There's my name. And she looks down and she kissed me. The worst burned part of my body, my face. She kissed my face. And she looked in my good eye and she said, "I want you to know I really love you. Welcome home, Davy." And when she says Davy, hey, what you thinking, kid? I said, "I'm sorry I can't look good for you." She said, "Baby, you never were good looking. Ye shall know the truth, and it shall tick thee off." I left that hospital. My life was coming back together. I was preaching. My 1971 calendar, I found it about 2 years ago. I found it accidentally in one of the little, they call it a secretary, it's a little drawer. And I was looking for some batteries, and there was my 1971 little pocket calendar. I looked through every page. I preached 51 weeks in 1971. I've been out of the hospital 6 months, and I started my tours. I even went back to college for a semester. And I kicked off a career only to have it all come back on September 11, 2001, when I went virtually insane watching that television tell me that we have just been attacked. I yelled at the screen. I said, "God, don't you leave me out of this war. Let me do something for my country." I spun around, looked at Brenda, and I said, "I need an M16. And she looked at me and she said, "You need to sit down before you have a stroke." That's exactly what she said. I'm not adding one word or taking away one. Sit down before you have a stroke. Well, I sat down because she's always right, and I didn't want to die and her stand over me saying, "I told you so." 2 weeks later, I got a call from the Department of Defense, United States Air Force. "Mr. Roever, we're inviting you to Langley. Would you come?" And I said, "Let me pray about that. Amen, okay." I went. They said, "Would you tour all the bases throughout the United States?" I said, "Let me pray about that. Amen, okay." 2 years later, they said, "Would you go down range?" I said, "Let me pray about it. Amen, okay." I knew that God didn't let me go through what I went through for nothing. I was made for this. I was made for this. And I can tell you right now, they don't send me because I'm good looking. They don't send me for my mighty military strength. I have to sit down to talk. And they assist me everywhere I go, and gladly. And I give it all I got. And to be honest with you, I wear out a lot of the people that are assigned to me. I wear them out, just trying to keep up with me. But when I come home, I die for about 3 days. They don't call me because my academic achievements. As I said this morning, I was in the top 10% of the lower 1/3 of my class. But here's the truth. They call me because I didn't hide the scars. Today we have 2 ranches, one in Colorado, one in South Texas. These ranches run about 300 acres. They are recognized by the military as 5-star resorts. They're the most beautiful places you'll ever see. Built from the ground up for the most part, although in Colorado we kept one cabin that was built in 1893. We restored it, and it's gorgeous. All to period. Everything is like it was. In Texas, we started with one facility, and now we're building more facilities as we speak. Tomorrow morning, they'll be swinging hammers, God willing. I had to fire one crew for not showing up. I need godly Christian. I want Christians to benefit because we pay them good money to build out there on that ranch. And we're building 8 new cabins for married couples and a brand new chapel. The chapel and 4 cabins already paid for in cash. Just not finished building them yet. They're in the process, though. And I think we can be through by the 1st of December. I hope you'll pray for me to do that. Because the Fort Sam Brooke Army Medical Center is coming. And I'm speaking for the U.S. Army North that's based there at Fort Sam, coming up here in just a very short time. And we bring them all, wounded and some that aren't, that you can't see their wounds. Don't ever underestimate the damage of post-traumatic stress in our warriors. Never underestimate it. It's devastating, and because you can't see a wound, I'm telling you, it's so why? God never intended the eyeballs in the socket of our head to see the consequence of human beings killing human beings. We weren't made for war. God didn't put us in a battlefield. He put us in a garden. And because of sin, look what we've done. I can thank God to this day that there's a nation on earth called America and a few allies that believe those nations that are under bondage need to be free. And we have men and women in this country that believe that enough that they put on the uniform of the United States military and say, here am I, send me. God bless them. We're sitting in this room having had a day to worship God, got up this morning without the sound of distant thunder, put on our clothes, went to church, served God, worshiped God without the fear of interruption by a government with guns coming in and checking us out. We are free. There will not be a Taliban hand grenade down this aisle. There won't be an Al-Qaeda truck bomb because our troops were up all night last night watching out, just like they will tonight, to make sure we're free around this world. God bless our military. I knew you'd like that. So I close by telling you, I go to these countries and they still send me. They're working out some things now I'm not at liberty to talk about, but I want you to hear me. As long as I have breath, a heartbeat, and 2 legs that can carry me this body, I will say yes to every invitation to serve our nations, to serve our national military who serve our nation and our security. I'll go. And tomorrow I want your prayers, because tomorrow afternoon we're going to minister to a bunch of guys out here at Fort Polk. And they're getting ready to be deployed. And I want to be the right man at the right time, the right words to the right people for the right purpose. And when you got all that going for you, you can't go wrong, can you? So I'll close by telling you, one of my most amazing moments was to escort the fallen in C-130s across the battlefields of the Middle East to bring them to Baghdad, where their bodies would be processed for shipment on what's called the Angel Flight to Dover, Delaware. When I went to Dover and spoke for NSA, for Dover Air Force Base for the U.S. Navy, United States Air Force, and I spoke for the CIA and Fort Meade. It was a huge convocation. It's one of the largest I've ever done. There was enough brass in there to build a bathroom. I mean, it was everywhere. I looked at all that crowd of in there. I don't think anybody was there below the status of a colonel. And I realized I have the opportunity to encourage leadership. And I finished my presentation, and a colonel came up to me. He said, "Have you ever been through the National Mortuary?" I said, "No. I may look dead, but I'm not that tired." He laughed. He said, "No, I'm talking about a tour." I said, "No, I haven't." He said, "Can I take you?" I said, "I'd be honored." You know where he took me? Right off the top, the autopsy room, and I would not go in. I said, "Colonel, it's not hocus pocus. It's not silliness, but I don't belong in that room. Because that room has had the most hallowed, sacrificial gifts of life lay on that table. For me to go in there and go," he said, "There's no one on the table." I said, "That's not the point. To me, that represents the Holy of Holies of the old tabernacle. And the people that are in there for the sacrifice that's laid on that altar, those doctors are trained. I'm not. Those Levitical priests were trained." I said, "I don't belong in there." He said, "I get it, Mr. Roever." I said, "But Colonel, is this not the most difficult assignment you've ever been given?" He said, "It's actually very difficult, but not here." "Come," he said, "I'll take you there." And he took me over to a room that was about the size of the bottom floor here without these side wings. Every square inch of that floor was holding up on racks all the different branches of the military uniforms. And I thought, well, it's a BX storage. And then I dawned, wait a minute, I'm in a morgue. Oh my goodness, it hit me like a wave. Every one of these are burial shrouds. Every uniform is going to be containing the remains of somebody that died for me. And I looked at that colonel, I said, are these? He said, yes, Dave. Somebody loved you and me enough to give their life. And this uniform, these uniforms, are for their burial. It left me so solemn. I said, then, sir, this is that most difficult place, isn't it? He said, not here, but come. I'll take you there. And he took me over to the Fisher House, which there are a number of those around our military installations, built by the Fisher Foundation, I think it's called, for Mr. Fisher back in World War II, the industrialists who thought families ought to have a place of consolation and counsel as their loved ones arrive from the battlefield for internment. Beautiful homes, appointed with the most gorgeous Corinthian leather furniture, the smell of mahogany is just amazing. And I thought, wow, what a place. Thank you for America for loving those who've lost their loved ones. And I said, is this the place? He said, come on, I want to show you something. And he took me to a room, a little anteroom off the chapel. And when he opened the door and I looked in, I knew exactly where I was. The big giant stuffed panda bear, the Tonka toys, you know now, don't you? This is the romper room. This is where the children are left to play. And instead of the children doing the crying, it's the mom and dad doing the crying. It's the wife doing the crying. And the children find it confusing. And the room itself was bad enough, if I can use the word bad. It was the blackboard. It wasn't eye level to an adult. It was eye level to a child. And it wasn't the blackboard only, it's what was written on the blackboard. And if I had my iPhone that I have, it broke, and I have this little iPhone, and it doesn't have the picture on it, but I've got a picture that Kathy took the picture and gave it to me. Because I was so shaken, I didn't think to take out my camera, my phone. You know what it said on the blackboard? Written by a child. My mommy meant the world to me. I felt my knees want to kneel, and I couldn't hardly stand. And I looked over at the colonel. I said, sir. He said, yeah, Dave. Everything you see and everything you understand is real. I said, is this that place? Is this the most difficult assignment you've ever been given? He said, this is very close, but not quite. Come, he said. I'll take you there. And he took me to the flight line, and there the C-5A, the C-17, the C-130, whatever brings in on the angel flight the remains of those heroes that died to give us a night like this, when their bodies are unloaded, it's the strangest experience in the world. Men and women in uniform march in and unstrap the heaviest load that airplane ever carried. It's marched off, and a rope separates the families. And for the first time, they lay eyes on what's called a transfer case. You and I would call it a casket. And as it's marched off that aircraft, those families sit there and look. For the first time, they could almost touch that casket. It's loaded on a truck that takes off and goes down the road. A truck without scratches or chips of paint. The tires glisten, the wheels shine. Everything is perfect. I said, Colonel, what happens next? He said, Dave, sometimes we have a runner. I said, what's a runner, Colonel? He said, that's when Mama can't take it anymore. She jumps that rope, and she takes off down the street chasing that truck. I felt my breath sucked right out of my mouth. I could hardly breathe. I said, sir, truly? He said, she chases that truck. I said, what do you do? He said, I have to jump the rope and I have to chase her And then I said, he said, then when I catch her, I said, what do you do? He said, I'll hold her. I said, what do you say? And he looked me in the eyes, and without a pause, he said, that, Mr. Roever, is the most difficult assignment I have ever been given in 30 years service to my country, because there's nothing I can say to bring her baby back and let her hold again the bone of her bone and the flesh of her flesh. Abraham Lincoln wrote a letter to Mrs. Bixby. It goes something like this. It has come to my attention through the War Department and the Adjutant General of the great state of Massachusetts that you have lost all 5 of your sons who died gloriously on the field of battle fighting for the cause of the Union. 5. Listen to his closing statement. My words are not intended to assuage you from your rightful grief, yet they must be tendered. And hear what he said. This is a verbatim quote. The solemn pride that must be yours to have laid so costly a sacrifice on the altar of freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in this room at the most expensive price ever paid for freedom by any nation on earth. We have fought for everybody else's freedom and our own. And we continue to fight for that cause that is still worth dying for. And if there's nothing worth dying for, there's nothing worth living for. So I conclude tonight with a little short video that kind of tries to say it for me. It'll show you the ranches we've built. You'll see our warriors at the table. We feed them like they've never been fed. We tell them, if you don't gain 5 pounds in 1 week, we've failed in our mission. You'll see the break they get to take on 4-wheelers. You'll see the beautiful facilities. And you'll see the angel flight. I hope this video will say to you what was intended to be said from my heart through the capable eyes of David Wampler, the husband to the lady who sang it. And when you see it, let it speak to you like it does to me. The angel flight.
Houston Tower, good afternoon. Angel Flight Bravo 03. Gear down 5 miles. We have a hero on board tonight. Angel Flight Bravo 02. You are number 1 for landing. Welcome home.
God bless our troops. It's been a privilege and an honor to come to this community and to this church. And when I say this church, I'm talking about the body of Christ. That is the church. And it's found in many different locations in the city under different names and different buildings. But together, those of you who have come into this house, it is my honor to have had the opportunity to share my heart with you, and it is my heart. You've sat patiently for an hour and 40 minutes, or hour and 30 minutes, I guess it is. You've been an amazing audience. And I love you. Thank you for the privilege to exercise my freedom of speech, my freedom of press, freedom of religion, my right to pursue happiness, and freedom of our assembly together peaceably in this building. There's going to be an opportunity given at this time for you to participate in something very important. I do not take federal funding. Do you understand that? Into our program. I get paid in contracts by the government for me to speak to our troops, and then that money is immediately, it's given to me. I am the recipient, Dave Roever. I endorse that check, and it goes straight to the ministry for our troops. The program, Operation Warrior Reconnect, has never received federal funding, nor, and listen carefully to what I say, I am not, have not been, and never will be part of the Wounded Warrior Project. I have nothing to do with them. Don't associate me with them, no matter what reports or whatever comes down, good, bad, or ugly. I'm not part of them. We work as a faith-based operation, and we are privileged to have the confidence and the love of the United States Department of Defense, who continues to send us on active duty their wounded warriors. And we're proud to serve them. I was just in contact today with 4-star now, General Joe Anderson out of the Pentagon, who I was privileged to serve in Afghanistan for the closing days of the war there. And he was in charge of the ground troops at that time. And he would take me all over the world with him, wherever in Iraq, Afghanistan, serving not only him, but Ray Odierno, who was ultimately Chief of Staff for the Army, now recently retired. I'm telling you that to give you this understanding. I have confidence by these people in us, but I don't take their money. Because the day I take money from the United States government into a 501c3 program, they have the authority to tell me what I can do and can't do. And my ministry is not for sale for 30 pieces of silver, ladies and gentlemen. That's that simple. Not going to happen. When I write a contract with this government, they pay Dave Roever. They pay a nonprofit that they do not give to our ministry. We do not accept it. Does everybody understand that? Say amen. So when I ask you for your support tonight, I'm going to tell you exactly where it's going and how this money will be designated. According to all of the audits, the IRS has never successfully challenged us in any of this, what I'm about to tell you. 95 to 97% of every designated dollar goes to exactly what it's designated for in our ministry. We have a 3 to 5% administration fee. That's unheard of. Some places it's 50%, and some it's 90% goes to the people, not to the cause. Not with us. So when you give, you're giving to this. We are, at this time, urgently, desperately needing to pay for the scholarships and the cabins. Two things. I have in Fort Worth, Texas, and you can look this up online. It's spelled Boenker, a man who's very rich. His name is Al Banker. He has an insurance company that insures insurance companies. Now, that's my kind of sugar daddy right there. He gives to this ministry on the condition others give. He matches every $1,000 gift or more up to and including $100,000, and he's matched 7 $100,000 gifts over the last few years. He gives because he believes in America, he believes in our troops, he trusts me, and he loves Jesus, and he gives. So any gift, now don't be frightened by that $1,000 number. I can't give one. I can't give 1,000. But if you're blessed and you can, it's worth $2,000. And if you want to give that way, and you want to on your credit card or the neighbor's card if you found it, that was a joke. We can help you back there at the table. We have the ability to do that. I'm telling you that knowing many people can't give $50. They can't give $5. See, in the eyes of God, it's not 1,000 or 5 or 50. It's what is our best gift for what we can do with what we've got. Everybody understand that? Say amen. So that's not letting you off the hook. That's not the idea. You weren't on the hook to start with. I'm trying to explain to you, we have means by which to make money count twice its amount. I wish I could make it a collective offering, but he won't do that. He says it's got to be individuals or companies, but it can't be a collective offering. He said, I want to inspire people to give, and it works. So tonight, when you give, you're helping me with 2 things: scholarships and cabins. I've got 4 more cabins to build, and I've got to get them paid for. I got to get this project finished by December 17th. If I've offended you, I wasn't talking to you. I was only talking to people that don't get offended. So it wasn't you. I wasn't even talking to you. I'm only talking to other people. You understand, don't you? Give me a little support. Say, yeah, Brother Dave. Thank you. Because it's not about money. It's about ministry. But if you don't grease the wheels of ministry, the wheels fall off and the ministry goes nowhere. So we got to keep those wheels greased. If you don't have any money, that doesn't stop you from giving. Reach in the pocket of the person next to you. There's a lot of money in here had been spent. 1,000 is spelled THOUSAND. Just thought I'd give you a little help. You are a fun audience. It's been so good to be together with you tonight. I'm going to turn the mic to Pastor. It's been a long night for all of us, I think. But I said to myself when I came in this house, I'm going to give them everything I got tonight. And I left nothing out I didn't want to leave out. Thank you. I'm Dave Roever, and I approve of this message. I love you, Pastor. God bless you, Doc. Thank you, sir. Thank you.